Welcome to the Hopcast. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, and I'm on board Milwaukee streetcar, The Hop. It's all about connections, it's all about community, and it's all about moving Milwaukee forward. I have a great guest today, Mike Doble, who's the co-owner of Explororium Brew Pub. We're about a block from passing your location,
We are.
Mike. Yes. He has two great locations in the area. One at Southridge, and the other we're about to pass here at 143 West St. Paul Avenue. Mike and his wife Joanne, they opened their first location in 2016 and their downtown location in 2020. It's a USA Today nominee for one of the best 10 brew pubs in the country.
We won.
And they won. All right, there we go. That was going to be my tease. I was going to ask you that later. But Explororium truly, in a city that is known for beer, is constantly innovating, really evolving and growing each and every year. So we're going to have a
Check
fun
that
location.
out.
There we go.
There we
Passing
go.
Explororium right here.
And there's a stop right there.
So we appreciate all your promotions with Hop and the streetcar and the city through the years. You've been a really good partner. So I look forward to learning more about you, look forward to learning more about the business, and just talking about innovation and creativity and community in the beer business.
This is fun. I mean, we talk about innovation. We're doing a podcast on a hop.
That's right, exactly.
My wife didn't believe me this morning.
We're going to do 4 segments like we do each time. I do a little onboarding just to get to know you a little bit. We'll do a segment called Moving Milwaukee Forward. We'll talk about Milwaukee, development. We'll do a segment called Quick Hops, 10 quick questions to get to know you even better. And then we'll do a final destination question.
Awesome.
All right. The first one is wonderfully simple. Give us the Mike Doble story, Mike.
Oh, wow. So I was born in a land far, far away called California.
The West Coast.
The West Coast. My dad was an Army guy.
Okay.
And so I lived all over the world. Thus, he was stationed in California when I was born. And, lived in England and lived all over the U.S. and Georgia and Florida, North Carolina, Missouri. So I've been in a lot of places and had a lot of experiences. When I graduated from high school, I ended up at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Okay.
And on the first day of school, I met a gal that is from Wisconsin. And we've been together ever since. Next year we'll be married 30 years.
Congratulations.
And thank you.
Yes.
And and that's what brought me to Wisconsin. So I settled here in Milwaukee in 1998.
Okay.
I was in the Army for about 6.5 years. And, it was interesting because Joan had grown up here in Milwaukee. She's from Muskego. And I had all these experiences from all over the world, and for years we talked about creating some sort of hospitality brand. And so that's kind of where, from me growing up in the Army and her from here, that's how Mike Doble got here. In the last, but I didn't start out with a brew pub. The brew pub's been open about 6 years now.
Okay.
I worked here in this area as a civil engineer.
Okay.
Doing land development work. I worked here in the 3rd Ward for probably about 5 years and fell in love with the 3rd Ward.
Okay.
And that's kind of what got me down into the 3rd Ward. From a beer history in my family, for background for opening a brew pub, growing up, overseas, mostly in Europe. I graduated from high school in Belgium.
Okay.
And so I grew up as a, late teenager really enjoying Belgian beers. My dad was a big beer guy. And when he retired from the Army, they settled in Tampa, Florida, and they ended up opening a homebrew store.
Okay.
And so without a lot of money, new business owners, I got a lot of homebrew kits for birthdays and Christmas and whatnot when I was in, college and those early days. So I probably brewed my first batch of beer in 91 or 92.
Okay.
And, brewed off and on as a home brewer for a lot of years. And then subsequently, my brothers had the same experience. So as we sit here today, I have the 2 brew pubs here in the Milwaukee area. My brother Mark has a brewery in Raleigh, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And my brother Dave runs the family brewery, which is Tampa Bay Brewing Company in Tampa, Florida. And so, it's in the blood, it's in our family. And I'm kind of the latecomer to the game. We've been open almost 6 years. My brothers have been open for a lot longer. But we love being here in Milwaukee. kind of a roundabout way that I got here to Brew City, and it just so happens, with beer in the blood, it just fits, and it's been a great experience. I love Milwaukee.
Right. I mean, in a city known for family and community and beer, you're another one of those family and communities and beer.
Yeah, it's awesome. Love it.
When you were concepting, obviously, kind of anchored in the roots of family and home brewing, and where'd the name come from? How do you come up with a name when there's so much other stuff going on? Was it simply, wow, I like to explore beer, or was it deeper than that?
It really was us being my wife and I conceptualizing what do we want. We wanted to be in hospitality. Being a brewery was, what I wanted to do. She wanted to do a bread and breakfast. But beer was obvious. There was a need, and relying heavily on my family's brew pub in Florida, and living here and seeing what they were doing there and what was missing in the market here. One of my favorite places when I worked in Third Ward was Milwaukee Ale House. And I never intended to open up near Milwaukee Ale House because I loved what they do. Right. So that's why we ended up opening over in Southridge area. Yeah. But from a brand perspective, I had grown up all over the world and had all these experiences. Joan's from Milwaukee. They didn't do a lot of traveling. I don't think she ever left the country until we were together. Yeah. And so she always talked about wanting to explore all these different flavors and different things, and that's where the Explore came from. And then as we extended it out, let's do an emporium of exploration or something, and we kind of combined it, and Explororium came up. So, okay. Very good. And it wasn't taken.
Yeah, there we go. Yes. And it's unique enough. It has that point of difference that, whoa, Explororium, what's that all about? So talk about that. What's different at Explororium?
Well, so I watching my brothers establish their businesses and my mom and dad back in the day. And becoming regional breweries. I mean, obviously, the big jelly donut for brewers is to sell, gazillions of barrels of beer across the country, right? I mean, Miller and Bud and all that. And that's how you make money in the beer business. Seeing a very saturated market in craft beer, we wanted to have a place that was more of a gathering place. Bring people in and expose them to craft beer. Despite there being almost 9,000 craft breweries right now today, it's still less than 20% of the market is craft beer. So there's a lot of people out there that have misconceptions about craft beer and what it is and what it can be, and quite frankly, there's some breweries out there that don't help with that because they only brew IPA or they only brew a certain style. And so when we established the brand, we wanted to make sure we had something for everybody. And if I have one differentiator that we have, it's just we have a beer style for pretty much everybody. If you want to bring grandma in that drinks Coors Light, I have a beer for that. Right. If you like fruited sours, I have a beer for that. If you like stouts, and I could go on and on. Yeah. But that's our point of differentiation. I focused on hospitality and a gathering place, and a place for activities and hold fundraisers for the community and that sort of thing. Right. But then have a broad range of offerings that you could explore different styles. But if you have something you like, we can focus on that.
Yeah. Okay. So how many beers do you have on tap at a given time at both locations? And is it a consistency to that? Like, I always want to have this many, or is it like one day you get up, hey, we need to make a new beer? You're like, talk about that process.
Right. That's the variety in beer brewing is what makes it fun. Yeah. Making a bunch of different beers is what makes it fun for myself, my brewers, my cellarmen, and everybody's engaged in that process. We always have 24 beers on tap. If you walk into our Southridge location right now, you can probably get 34 different product offerings that we've made there in-house. Wow. Downtown, we have just probably 6 less taps. And if you walk in there today, you probably could get about 28 different products. Okay. 24 beers on tap all the time. In 6 years, you get a fan base that demands particular beers always be on tap. Right. So, we label that as core brands. We generally don't have core brands, but there are certain beers that we have to have on tap all the time, or, certain people get upset with us. So there is a slice of our taps that remain the same. But then there's also another large slice which quite frankly is more than some of the other breweries in town have on tap in total. Those taps rotate constantly, almost on a weekly basis.
Okay. All right, good. Well, personally, in my beer journey, if you will, I've leaned in a little bit more to the fruited sours, and you have a lot of fruit beers on your menu that are very, very good.
Thank you.
Is that kind of flavored trend here to stay, or is it a trend?
Well, fruited sours are wonderful, first of all. And there's a brewery in Belgium called Lindemans that's been making fruited sours for over 400 years.
Yeah. Really cool bottles.
The fad from 400 years is just starting to cool off. So the short answer is I think they're here to stay.
Okay.
And they're wonderful styles. You know, generally the sourness is balanced by like some really nice fruit sweetness and bold flavors. And you know what? If you look at the seltzer trend today, and you compare a Lindemans Framboise with some of the seltzers that are being released, you know, it really is kind of hand in hand working together. So I think they're going to be around forever. I personally really, really like them. Yeah. My go-tos typically are IPAs. Okay. But I do love the fruited sours.
Okay. I had a chance to talk to Dick Leinenkugel about 10 years ago or so, and I asked him what specifically the trends in beer were. And he said, coming from Europe to the States, it was no and low alcohol. And he said, you're going to see that coming. Yes. Is that something you embraced? And I've heard the brewing process is more difficult, right, to get the flavors out?
It is. I mean, generally the bold flavors that we associate with beer come along with alcohol. Okay. And so when you're making lighter beers, and when I say lighter beers, lighter in alcohol, right. They end up being lighter in body as well. Okay. So there's some challenges there. I mean, there are some systems on the market to actually make the beer traditionally and then remove some of the alcohol. Okay. Very expensive equipment that we probably will not afford to buy. So one of our ways to address that trend, because it is an up and coming trend. I mean, you see it in mocktails. Yeah. You know, so you see it in the cocktail space, you see it in the wine space. It's happening in the beer space as well. The big boys have a much better chance of doing that just because they can afford the equipment to make their beer traditionally but remove some alcohol. For us, we just end up making a lot of lighter beers. Still bold flavors, but you know, we've been putting out some 3.4% beers and some other lighter in alcohol beers, and they sell very, very well. Yeah. And you know, quite frankly, for me, from a sales perspective, somebody can drink a lot more 3.4% beer than 8% beer, which is good. You know, it's a positive thing.
The session beers and health and wellness, people are more cognizant of what they're putting in their bodies.
Absolutely,
for sure. You talked a little bit about seltzers.
Yeah,
you make seltzers in house.
Yeah, and it's a big thing. I mean, people really dig the seltzers, and we. You know, and for us, we make a seltzer like we make a beer. It's an extraordinarily light-bodied beer, and then we add flavoring to it after the fact. It addresses the purist that's in most brewers, that we don't like to add a lot of flavorings to traditional beer. Right. So it's a little bit of a playground for us, and we do some fun things. Like our most popular seltzer is a series that we do that we just call it Tastes Like Green, Tastes Like Blue. And we have several others coming out. They basically taste like a melted snow cone because they're basically flavored with snow cone flavoring. You know, but they're lower in sugar. They're not super sweet, but it has that flavor, very nostalgic, and they're kind of fun. The seltzers, I think, are really fun. I think they're here to stay. Yeah. We're going to settle on a core set that we do. And I have been getting a lot of flack from my regular customers that you're doing a lot of seltzers. Well, it looks like that because we end up putting all of our seltzers in cans. I don't like to take up beer taps with seltzers, although we always have one or two on tap. Yeah. But generally I put them in cans, so it just looks like there's this big volume of product coming out that's new and different. So,
you know, kind of along those lines, how have you chosen to kind of balance the demands of getting the beer in people's hands, retail, versus creating really the community aspect of the brew pub and the hospitality at the two locations? Is that?
Yeah, it's a difficult balance because people do want to see our beer out in the market, and it's almost a factor of legitimacy, right? You know, I don't see your beer anywhere. You must not be a legit brewery. You know, and I've gotten that from people. But my stated goal for my staff, my brewery production staff, is not to sell any beer ever outside. Now, that being said, We have a lot of relationships with a lot of people and a lot of very good people that want our beer and they want to be able to sell it to people. So we do a lot of relationship selling, and that's how we put the beer out. I tend to focus on more local brands, like Autos is a huge supporter. The chain of Autos stores, which is all local chain, pretty much every one of their stores keeps us stocked, which is fantastic. Amans and Wind Lake will have our beer. We sell, generally we try to hit the local liquor stores. We're selling quite a bit in Madison these days, and it's again some local guys that tried our beer, they love it and they want to keep it in stock, which is fantastic. It helps us legitimize what we do, but my focus is on hospitality, getting people in, checking it out, supporting other local brands as well.
Good.
Stone Creek Coffee,
I like
Milwaukee
that.
Pretzel Company.
That's right. That's
selling
what
their
it's all about.
stuff. They need outlets,
Yeah.
and
The support of local means a whole lot, especially
does.
in markets our size.
it does.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, shout out to Stone Creek, which is also on the hop route.
That's right. So you look into your crystal ball, your crystal beer mug. What do you really see for the next kind of 3 to 5 years in the beer industry as a whole?
I'm already seeing, and I think this trend will continue. That's why I mention it. A resurgence of clean, crisp lagers. We always, from day one, have made lagers. I specifically got my brew staff together when I was planning the brewery and said, "How many fermenters do we need?" Well, we need 6. Okay, I'm going to buy 7, so you never have an excuse to not make lagers. So from day one, we've had a lager on tap. I like them. It's my kind of if I'm going to have a daytime beer on a Saturday, it's going to be a light lager. The vast majority of the market in the world is light lagers, Heineken and Bud and Miller. I mean, I could go on and on. So I think the lager trend will continue. We started with 1 lager on tap all the time. Then we went to 2. As we sit here today, I have 4 lagers on tap at each location. That is going to continue to grow, and you're going to see more and more breweries that have kind of ignored lagers in the past start to make them. I even, insofar as in our downtown location, I put in 2 lagering tanks, which makes a huge difference in making lagers. So we start them in a conical fermenter, put them in a lager tank, and do them, what I'll characterize as the right way.
Okay.
That trend's going to continue. I do think seltzers are not going to go away.
Yeah.
I think the proliferation of them in the market and the number of brands will probably whittle down over time, but they're going to be around forever. As far as alcohol in general, you're going to see a lot more mocktails. You're going to see a lot more spirit companies putting out NA spirits, so you can make more traditional cocktails without the alcohol. I see that, the lighter, less calories, and lower alcohol is kind of the nature of the beast for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
For sure.
Simply, right? You look at a place and you can see the alcohol volumes now on all the menus, and you pick that way. You're like, 2.6. I know I can do that.
Right.
I have 2, and I'm good. So.
Yeah, and you can plan. If you're on, if you're riding a motorcycle, I
Exactly.
recommend sticking to some very low ABV stuff. But
That's right.
if you're riding the hop and you live right here,
That's right.
Go
higher.
Go higher.
So my final beer question before we move on to the next category is, what's the biggest misconception people have with beer? Like if you're not a beer drinker, how do you explain the product?
So here's how this conversation goes. I mentioned before that still 80% of the beer market in the world is the macro beers, light lagers, basically.
Yeah.
It's funny how many times I talk to somebody who's not a beer person and I say, "Hey, have you tried a locally made beer?" I try not to use the word craft beer because there's misconceptions, and that's what I'm getting at is, in the end, a lot of times I talk to somebody who's not familiar with locally made or what we could characterize as craft beer, and they say, "I don't like IPAs." The biggest misconception out there is that locally made craft beer is highly hopped, heavily bodied, and high in alcohol. And I try to convince people all the time, or at least encourage them to give it a try. The Explororium name, that's kind of where it comes from. Let's get some people in that have never tried craft beer, and then let's have some products that they can taste. Oh, you like sweet and fruit, and hey, try this beer. It's called a fruited sour. You may find it palatable, and a lot of people do. Or if they're used to macro light lagers, try our Crocus lager. It's nice and light, and And you know what? Hopefully, we're building a little bit more of a market. But yeah, people have this perception that craft beer is heavily hopped, highly alcohol, beers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but we're fighting that one.
That's right.
One customer at a time.
Very good. Well, let's, the missions of the hop is to move Milwaukee forward, continue on development and density and diversity and discovery and really kind of continue to create neighborhood-centric community.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, what's your wish for Milwaukee moving forward?
I love to see how the hop connects neighborhoods. And we're over here, and I don't know what road this is, but Prospect is right there.
Right.
We're at the end of the hop line, and this neighborhood is highly dense with a lot of people. And I have customers who are Mug Club members at my place that live here within a 5-minute walk of this stop that ride the hop down to my place. That's connecting neighborhoods. I would love to see the hop connect more neighborhoods to the business districts. I mean, I'm going to state the obvious. We'd love to see it go to Fiserv Forum. We'd love to see a connection to the airport. For travelers to be able to get off at the airport, jump on some sort of light rail or the hop, and get downtown and get to our business. I mean, God, how wonderful would that be?
Right.
It takes a lot of money. The biggest thing I see for Milwaukee to move forward and develop as a bustling downtown like you see in a lot of big metro areas is just connectivity. Pedestrian friendly, bike friendly, neighborhood connections, all those things that I learned in urban planning, so many years ago. We need to implement them, and there's a lot of factors and obviously a lot of money involved in that. But when you look at cities that do have those, logical connections and easy transport between neighborhoods, they're vibrant. And it's funny because some people live in this neighborhood but work over here, but then people that live over here, they'll work over there, and those connections make all the difference. I mean, Minneapolis and Portland and DC and New York City. I mean, all those places that have bustling downtowns, they have great public transportation with great connections. That's super easy, and they keep they keep things neat and tidy and under control, and good law and order, and keep the hoodlums at bay, and and we'll have a great bustling downtown.
Right.
We have an awesome city. We have so much more potential that we can achieve, though.
Yeah. Very good. So from a recruitment and retention standpoint, obviously you're always looking to hire employees.
Oh yeah.
How does that message work in your day-to-day business?
Right now with people that I look to hire, I get a lot of younger folks that are coming to the area. Might be their first job, or they're trying to get established in their career, and they need a step over point. And I love that. I mean, to me, that's super gratifying to be able to find a young person, a recent college grad or whatever, that may be coming from Madison and really wants to get into marketing, but you know what? I have to find the right gig, and they come by me as a stopover, and I love that. And my recommendation to them is find a spot where you can live in this area that you can either walk or get on the hop, look for connections, and make use of the connections we have so that you don't have to buy a car.
Right.
And if you do buy a bicycle, make sure you live in an area where there's good bike ways, so you're not getting crushed on the street.
Yeah.
And the city, I think the city finally recognizes that, and I think they're finally looking at some of those things.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that a lot of times the development of business and residential connections and those kind of take a backseat to some of the bigger problems that we have, and that's understandable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And you, as a business owner in the suburbs and downtown, talk about the unique challenges of opening a business in the suburbs first, and then in downtown. What is that?
Yeah,
what is that like?
Opening in the suburbs is fairly easy. There's, I have giant seas of parking outside of my place in the suburbs. We have plenty of space to expand and move. When in the more urban environment, you get hemmed in. The buildings go to the edge of the sidewalk goes to the back of curb. There's parking issues and all those other things.
Right.
When I was approached to take a look at my place in the Pritzlaff building, those are some of the things I brought up. Hey, is there parking? Hey, we have a parking structure next door. Wow, check that box. That's sweet. Is there outdoor space available? Because a lot of urban places, it's really difficult unless you go rooftop.
Yeah.
very difficult to get some outdoor space, and we have some outdoor space and some of those things. So for me, in my particular location, it was super attractive to come downtown.
Yeah.
There's 99 apartments right above me. Within a 5-minute walk, I think that I did a count at one point, but it was somewhere around 500-600 apartments within a 5-minute walk. So that's really great. Those are neighborhoods that we can serve and become the neighborhood gathering spot, which is a really big part of our brand and what we do and what we want to be.
Yeah.
So
say the location downtown. What caught your eye about it, and did it have anything to do with simply you're really close to a lot of other breweries?
Oh yeah,
it makes that collaboration that much easier.
Yeah, I mean the density of breweries makes a difference. If we have a lot of breweries close by, then brewing people will look there. But there's also Central Standard Distillery right across on Clybourne, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because people, people love local. They like to know their brewer, know their farmer. Now we have our opportunity to know our distiller, which is really pretty cool.
Yeah.
And know the people who are living and working in their neighborhood, making the food, making the beer. I mean, how great is that? I mean, Stone Creek Coffee, they make the coffee right there in the shop. And, you can know your roaster. I mean, the guy in front of me was one of their roasters when I was getting my coffee today. And that's really cool. And so for me, as a business owner, having that collection of people and other businesses that are all very similar, it attracts a crowd that we like. Yeah. And it's good people that live in a neighborhood that want to support local, and that is super attractive, like especially down here. Yeah. Suburbs, it's a little harder. Everybody drives.
Yeah.
Right? And we have a great community over there in our Southridge Brew Pub. We have an awesome mug club. We have a great crowd of people that come in. And they're from within about 3 miles of the pub. Where down here, most of my customers are within about 6 blocks. Okay. The radius is way different, in the suburban world versus the urban world. And which I think is really cool.
Yeah. Good. All right, I'm going to move on to this little quick hop segment.
Yes.
10 quick questions, some lifestyle stuff, we're going to have some fun. I always feel like we need game show music for this, but here we go. All right. So what book are you reading right now, Mike?
I'm not reading anything currently. I just finished a book called The Go-Giver, which focuses on, it's a play on the words of a go-getter. But the go-giver makes connections, and the go-giver gives of his time and his experiences to help others make connections, and you reap what you sow.
Yes. I have a copy of that book.
Very good book.
It's very good.
I
really
just
quick,
finished
easy read.
Yes.
Makes a really good gift too.
It does.
So your insider tip as a business owner for somebody coming to Milwaukee for the first time?
Oh gosh, so travelers, I have a lot of friends in Florida, and they always ask me, where do we go? Where do we stay? Option 1, get an Airbnb in 3rd Ward and find a good spot where you can, if you get a place there, if you want a hotel, stay at the Cambria, right along the Hop route. Yeah. It's right across the street from us. Their rates are really good. It's a no-frills hotel, but super clean, super nice, and you can stay there, walk across the street to the Hop stop. You can get pretty much anywhere where you want to be in the city. 3rd Ward is right there. Obviously, you're close to Explororium, so that's where you need to be.
Right. So your favorite restaurant in Milwaukee?
My favorite restaurant is La Merenda.
Okay.
I go there. It's probably the place I go the most outside of Explororium.
Yeah, that's a great location.
Yeah.
Favorite beer?
My favorite beer is our Damn That's Good Double IPA. I'm a higher ABV guy. I'm a bigger guy. I can handle the alcohol, but it's a big, bold, full flavored double IPA made with grapefruit peel, lots of hops, super nice.
All right, good beer always pairs well with good conversation. Other than our conversation, what's the best conversation you've ever had?
Oh gosh, I've had some really great conversations with a lot of people. I'm an aerospace engineer by schooling, by education. And I'm a big aviation buff. And years ago, I got to go to the Experimental Aircraft Association that happens every year. It's called Air Venture. Okay. And I got to talk to one of my heroes of aviation. His name is Burt Rutan. Okay. He's the guy that designed the Voyager that flew around the world nonstop and other stuff. And it was interesting because when I was in college, I called his company one day because we had a question on a design project. He answered the phone. Here's this guy, he's 100 millionaire in aviation, and he answers the phone and answered some student's question. And when I was talking to him years later at Oshkosh, he remembered that phone call. That for me was like one of those really like, wow, hair stand up on your arm moments, you know.
I like that. That's great.
Really cool.
Are you a music guy? What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Best concert, hands down, ever. I grew up in Belgium in high school.
Okay.
I was in Belgium. And every year in a town called Werchter in Belgium, they do a festival called Rock Werchter.
Okay.
And I went to it every year, but one year they had REM and the Ramones and Depeche Mode, and the headliner was U2, and it was amazing. 12 hours of complete immersion in just the best music on the planet, in my view. Of course, you know, I'm starting to get into the dinosaur range.
Yeah.
So
I feel like U2 has a reunion tour coming.
Oh, I hope so.
Residency and then a final reunion tour.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
That's gotta happen. Podcasts? Do you have a favorite podcast you listen
You know,
to? Or is that your thing?
the only podcast I listen to on a regular basis is Dude Foods.
Okay.
And because I'm a foodie guy,
Yeah,
and I love some of the crazy stuff he does. Good guy, and we've met before, and I listen to his stuff just because he's so wacky, and he comes up with some great combinations of things that you would not think to do.
Yes.
And so that's the one I listen to on a regular basis.
All right. Favorite city?
Gosh, favorite city, I would have to say Tampa, Florida. The one city I go to outside of Milwaukee the most is Tampa.
Yeah.
Family, great foodie city, beaches close by. It's really kind of very much Milwaukee, but in a hot and humid climate.
Yeah.
Really,
Okay.
really nice city. A lot of parallels to Milwaukee.
The entertainment, is it Ybor City?
Ybor City,
That's
yeah.
kind of that's the Water Street
That's
on steroids,
That's
right?
the Water Street or the Brady Street of
Yeah.
Tampa, and my folks opened their brew pub in Ybor City.
Oh, nice.
In
Okay.
96, they
Yeah.
opened in Ybor City, and
Okay.
I've wandered the streets of Ybor late at night more times than I care to remember.
Alright. Then I always like to ask the celebrity question. Most famous person you've ever met?
Oh gosh, probably the most memorable, and she's not even famous. Probably nobody's ever heard of her. But Deion Sanders' mother. I sat on a flight out of D.C. when Deion Sanders played for D.C.
Yeah.
And I sat next to this lady. She's wearing a Sanders jersey. And I'm like, oh, Deion Sanders, man, he's got a lot of attitude. And she goes, really? I'm his mother. And we talked, and what a delightful person. Really, really nice. And she had all kinds of autographed cards in her purse and handing them out on the plane. My most memorable brush with famous people was probably that. She was just a delightful person.
All right, very good. And then finally, you gave us your favorite beer, but you're having something other than beer. What's your go-to? Is it coffee? Do you have a certain sparkling water? Like, what's your
Bourbon.
certain brand?
You know what? I'm partial to Woodford.
Okay. All right.
You know, it's very consistent. Woodford Reserve is probably my go-to at home.
Nice. All right.
But I do love coffee.
Yeah.
And I stop over by Steve Hawthorne's place quite a bit.
Nice.
Hawthorne Coffee in Stone Creek is obviously close to my other pub, and local coffee is so killer. I'm so tired of the overly roasted national brand coffee that she'll go and name.
Yes. We are Brew City for more reasons than one. It
Correct.
is coffee and it is beer.
And we are so blessed.
Yes.
So blessed
very
with some
much
great
so.
coffee roasters.
All right, and then our final destination as we kind of get back into the third ward here and prepare to pass Explororium one more time. Just define success, Mike.
In the end, I feel like I've been very successful, and I think I've achieved business success. Personal success to me is getting to that point in your life where you can spend less time building your business and less time, focused on stuff that is really, it doesn't matter if it's your business or somebody else's business. It's hard work to build a business. Success to me is being able to take a step back from that and be able to start to give back. And when you make that transition from you know what, hey, I've done what I needed to do to make my life and my family comfortable. It's time to start giving back and doing some things. And I do it. And this, for me, is the most gratifying thing. I do a lot of volunteer work. Like I said, I'm an aviation buff. I'm an aviation fanatic. And I volunteer my time to fly kids in planes. And actually, just Wednesday morning, I was flying kids that are attending a burn camp out in East Troy. So these are all kids that have been injured in burn accidents of one sort or another. And, you know, to see the joy on their face as they fly around. First, they start out really scared. And I hope it's not because of my piloting skills. But you know, to just, you know, do that kind of thing. So that, to me, that is success.
Yeah.
To be able to, you know, shift your focus in your mind from survival and making money and making your business survive to starting to give back more and charitable causes and dedicate time to that. And that it's super gratifying.
Very good. All right. Well, congratulations on all your success. Thank you for your commitment to downtown Milwaukee, integrating Milwaukee in the hop. We really appreciate it. Thanks for your time this morning. And cheers.
Really, cheers. Really appreciate it.
Cheers. A friendly reminder to follow the Hop account on social media. You can find the Hopcast on our YouTube channel. And to get downtown and ride the hop. Thank you very much.